Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my top 6 favorite Catholic and Protestant podcasts to listen to in the car. I know some people listen to podcasts when they're working out or when they're getting ready in the morning. I always listen to mine in the car, but I hope these are some new suggestions for you that you have fun checking out. If you like listening to podcasts or you're interested in starting to listen to podcasts, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up so I know this is something you're interested in, and let me know in the comments down below if you listen to these already or if you're gonna check them out. So my first podcast that I listen to that I love is the first one that I ever started listening to. It was a few years ago when I was in grad school, and I don't remember how I came across this podcast, but it's called Among the Lilies. Cameron Frad is the host of the podcast, and I had known of her husband, Matt Frad, from a young adult conference that I had been to a few years prior to that. But I don't remember how I came across this, but I love it. It's one of my favorite podcasts. The tagline of her podcast is that it's for ladies who are tired of pretending and are ready to be real. And that's such an honest thing about her podcast, because she is super real and raw and honest and talks about topics that a lot of people avoid or they just kind of like skirt on the surface of them. She goes deep into things like that and is not afraid of offending people, and that helps it to be really honest and real and good. A few episodes that she has that stuck out to me that I just wanted to share with you guys, like a few of the topics that she has on there. She has guests that talk about anxiety, infertility, the death of a child, living a life of joy, divorce and annulment, which is something not talked about a lot in the church, and then femininity, modesty, theology of the body. She just talks about a ton of good subjects. Some of them she has guests on, some of them she chats with her husband, some of them is just her. But Among the Lilies is the first podcast I ever started listening to, still listening to it years later, and I love it. It has such a good, happy place in my heart. And another thing that I love about it is that it's become a community. So there's a Facebook page for women listeners of Among the Lilies. It's really a beautiful place because so many young Catholic, Christian, just women in general are on this page, all asking for advice, support, prayers, guidance, looking for community, looking for recommendations on things. It's such a beautiful place of support and encouragement, and I love being part of that and sharing things that have helped me when people are asking and I can relate to it, or asking questions and advice on there and learning so much on there. Even we picked out our wedding song based on some of the recommendations that the women gave me on that page. So I've been really enjoying that community and that podcast. The second one that I wanted to mention is called Do Something Beautiful, and the host of that podcast is Leah Darrow. She's a former model, and she was also a contestant on America's Next Top Model, which is a TV show with Tyra Banks, which I used to watch all the time in like middle school and high school. I loved that. I probably watched the season that she was on, but I never went back to check if I actually did. But she has this podcast called Do Something Beautiful, and her tagline is inspired by Mother Teresa, and she says, "Whatever you do today, do something beautiful for God." Her whole podcast is about showcasing different women and men too that are truly doing something beautiful in the world. This newest season is her and her husband, and they're just sharing their story, how they met, how they got engaged, got married, their life now. I believe they have 4 kids now. And just what all of that looks like for them. So I've really enjoyed listening to her story of how she was a model living in New York City and living just like a very worldly lifestyle, and now she just completely changed her life, and she's still very into beauty and fashion and all of these things, but in a way that represents her dignity as a woman and as a daughter of God. So that's really beautiful. Some of my favorite episodes, sorry if you can hear all the cars outside. It feels like it's fall for the first time in Miami, and so we have the windows open and it's beautiful and it feels really nice outside, but sorry if it's a little bit loud because we live in the city. Okay, so some of my favorite episodes that she has on her podcast, one of them is about the book Dating Detox by Lisa Cotter, and she just talks about that book and how she was inspired to write it and what that looks like. And I know a lot of my friends have read the Dating Detox and they've used it in their lives, and it's been really awesome for their faith life, for their relationship with God, and for their love life too. Another one of my favorites is called Pro-Life Africa, with a woman who I can't pronounce her name, but her nickname is Uju, and they talk about all of the pro-life women's issues in Africa, and that was just an amazing episode. I learned so much. There's one with a woman named Rosario Rodriguez about surviving violent crimes. She had experienced 3 or more violent crimes in her life that were really, really intense. And it was just amazing to hear her story and hear what she had been through and learn from her experience and what she took away from all of that and how she has grown as a person through those horrible experiences. Amazing. That was one of my favorite episodes on any of the podcasts that I've ever listened to. Another one from that podcast was on ethical trade and ethical fashion. And it was someone from Catholic Relief Services, and they were talking about just all of the ins and outs of what that looks like if you want to start buying in a more ethical way, looking at who's making the products that you're wearing or products that you have in your house, and just being more mindful of the people behind those items. So I love my Do Something Beautiful podcast too. So what I'm going to talk about is called Messy Parenting, and it's with Mike and Alicia Hernan. They are a married couple. They've been married for 24 years now, I believe, and they have 10 kids. And they say like it's a Catholic conversation on marriage and family, and they just speak from their experience, and it's very authentic and really beautiful to hear what they've learned through 24 years of marriage and 10 kids. They're very humble, but they have a lot of wisdom, and so I love listening to them. I don't know if it's because I'm a marriage and family therapist. I don't know if it's because I can't wait to have a big family one day, but I listened to them even when I was single, and I just feel like I learned so much from their experience. And when I have kids, for sure I will be going back to listen to it. Some of the episodes I go back to listen to now that I'm married, but I've just found their advice really helpful, and listening to what worked for them and what didn't work for them, and then learning from that. They talk about things like date nights, busyness, tithing, arguing in marriage, how to raise confident kids, and how to make good educational choices for your kids, like what type of education is best for them and best for your family. So I highly suggest that one, especially if you have kids, especially if you're married, but even if you're not, I just learned so much from it even when I was single. Next favorite Catholic podcast is the Catholic Feminist, and the host of that one is Claire Swinarski. And this I love because I feel like typically if you think of the word feminist, you think like not Catholic. Like Catholics are not feminists in like the very most popular sense of the word, I guess. But I love that she talks about what actually does it mean to be a feminist, and 100% if you're Catholic, you're a feminist. And then she brings all of that in with each episode, and something she asks all of her guests is what does their life look like as a Catholic feminist? And even men, I think she only has interviewed one. She interviewed a priest recently, but she asks him, what does your life look like as a Catholic feminist? And he has a beautiful answer. And so I think that's amazing to bring light to. Feminist doesn't only look like what we might think at first thought, but it really, like if you're Catholic, you're a feminist. If you're living out your faith, you're a feminist, and how that all goes together. She talks about really awesome issues. She talks about managing your fertility, natural family planning, the Creighton method. She has episodes all on those type of things. She did an episode on immigration and the crisis at the border. I think those were 2 different episodes, and they were really insightful. And she has guests. Every episode she has guests. Some of them she does on her own, but most of the time she's interviewing someone, and all of the people she interviews, they're all incredible. She did one with the founder of Verily magazine, another one on entrepreneurship and finding balance, human trafficking, embracing Advent, and since Advent's coming up, then maybe that one's a good one to go back and look at and listen to, and then also how to embrace the season of singleness, which can be really difficult for a lot of people. So the Catholic Feminist is my current favorite podcast. I just love it, and I learned so much, and it's one of my newer ones that I came across more recently as opposed to some of the other ones, but I love it so much, and I've gone back to listen to most of her episodes. I think I still have some more, which is good because every time I get in the car I put on a podcast, so I always have something to listen to because she has so many, and I just love listening to them and learning from them. So the last 2 are kind of in a category on their own. They are still Catholic and Protestant podcasts, but they're different from the ones that I've mentioned so far, but they're similar to each other. So this next one, it's called UMD Catholic Campus Ministry, and basically it's Father Mike Schmitz podcast. So if you've heard of Father Mike Schmitz, you know him, and you know that you should be having this podcast in your life. If you haven't heard of him, please go listen to this and learn why you should have him in your life. He is an amazing priest. He's young, he's vibrant, he's exciting to listen to, he's inspiring. Basically, like, this podcast is just his homilies from when he gives homilies at the campus that he works at in Minnesota, I think. Every single one of them is so good and so amazing and just perfect, basically. And so what I wanted to say about that is, if you go to Mass on Sundays and you feel like you're left feeling uninspired, and you feel like, why am I even going? Like, I'm not getting anything out of this. Don't stop going, because you need to go, because we need Jesus, and Jesus is at Mass. And so we want to go to Mass every Sunday at least. But if you feel like the homilies aren't inspiring, or I'm not connecting with this priest, then after you go to Mass, you can listen to Father Mike Schmitz homilies, and he will get you ready to go. He will help you to fall in love with Jesus and help you to be inspired to take on your week and to share the gospel with everybody that you know. This last one is actually the only Protestant podcast that I listen to normally. It's called VOUS Church. And the pastors of the church is Rich and Dawn Sherry Wilkerson. They're a married couple, and this church is actually here in Miami. I haven't been to it, but I have read a book that Rich Wilkerson wrote, and that's how I was introduced to him and the church. I think I found it through Instagram, but the book he wrote is called Friend of Sinners, and I loved the book, and so I started listening to the podcast, and it's similar to Father Mike Schmitz. Father Mike Schmitz uploads his homily. The pastors, Rich and Dawn Sherry Wilkerson, they upload their sermons or their talks from their church service on Sundays. Sometimes it's other preachers or other people giving the message, but I really only listen to Rich and Dawn Sherry. But their examples and their life experience that they share and how they relate it to the gospel are really inspiring. And they're just awesome people. They had a baby recently, and they struggled with infertility for a while, and they are just amazing. When I listen to their talks, I am like ready to go. Like, they pump you up, and then they just like pump you up and send you out, and they get you like super excited to just dive in deeper in your relationship with Jesus and go out and spread his love with everybody that you see on the side of the road. And it's just awesome. So I really, if you are like looking for something to leave you inspired and get you pumped about your faith, then this is a really good one to listen to. So those are my top 6 favorite podcasts. Among the Lilies, Do Something Beautiful, Messy Parenting, The Catholic Feminist, Father Mike Schmitz, and VOUS Church. Those are my favorite podcasts, my go-tos. There are some other ones that I listen to too, but these are my favorites that I always listen to. So you can listen to all of these on the podcast app. I don't know what it looks like if you don't have an iPhone, but if you do have an iPhone, it's this purple podcast app. It comes on your phone, but if you don't have it, you can search for it in the App Store. And then if you don't have an iPhone, maybe you have a podcast app too, or I know you can listen to most of these online. If you just search the name on Google, it'll come up and you can listen to the podcast online too. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you guys check them out. Please let me know if you already listened to them, or if you're planning on checking them out, let me know what you think. And I would love to hear any other Catholic or Protestant podcasts that you guys listen to that I should check out. I'm always looking for something new to listen to in the car. Sometimes when I work out. So please let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up, and let me know any other topics that you'd like to hear me chat about, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!